Hello friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Michelle Fondin and I'm the author of Twin Flame Romance, The Journey to Unconditional Love. I'm also the author of Twin Flame Union, The 7 Keys to a Healthy Twin Flame Journey, and my brand new book, The Empowered Divine Feminine, Becoming an Unstoppable Woman in the 21st Century and Beyond. All of my books are available in paperback, Kindle, and Audible books. If you're new to my channel, welcome. Thank you for subscribing below. Click on the bell, scroll up to all for all notifications, and thank you for giving the video a thumbs up. I do tarot readings, 30, 60, and 90-minute readings, twin flame romance, general readings, life path and purpose. You can book that at my website, michellefondinauthor.com. Welcome to Twin Flame Guidance, where I guide you on a twin flame topic. And today's topic is, what is a twin flame for Muggles? Or how do you explain the twin flame connection to family and friends? If you've been struggling with this one, do stay tuned. The other day, I was at a dinner with 4 friends. A couple were just mere acquaintances. But someone in that group asked me about twin flames. I began talking about my YouTube channel and what I do and the most recent books that I've published. And I began to explain, but then I was at a loss for words. It was almost as if I was tongue-tied because I didn't know exactly how to explain the concept of twin flames to a non-believer. So usually what I would say is a twin flame is like a soulmate on steroids, but then that doesn't even justify this twin flame experience. And I had spent so many years shying away from that question, or almost like hiding from others in my environment, because I really didn't want them to ask that question or for me to have to explain it and have them sit there in disbelief. That was my greatest fear, is that I would try to explain it, they would not be believing it or not buying it, if you will. And then I would be sitting there looking a little dumb. And I really did not want that. But after that conversation, I soon began to realize that that was not adequate for me. I'm not ashamed of having a twin flame experience. I'm not ashamed of coaching twin flames, talking about it on YouTube, and writing 2 books on the topic. I am not ashamed at all, because it is an experience that I've had. And if you're watching this video, it's likely to be an experience that you have had or are currently going through, whether you're at the wee beginning of your journey or somewhere in the middle, or you are a seasoned veteran on the twin flame journey and you've been through the full gamut of the spiritual awakening, of the ups and downs, the roller coaster ride, the dark night of the soul, the back and forth with your twin flame, and all the likes of that. At that point in your journey, you might be well prepared to be able to share some of this with family and friends. Or as I stated, Muggles, meaning those who really are not a part of the twin flame journey in this lifetime. They're not meant to be a part of the twin flame journey in this lifetime. And they just might be very skeptical of what this might be. And they might even be skeptical of the whole concept of the soul, right? Because everybody is on this journey in life, the life journey, at different aspects of belief, just depending on what their soul has signed up to do in this lifetime. So if you want a really, really succinct answer to the question, what is a twin flame, asked by a Muggle friend or family member of yours, a really super succinct answer that you can answer is, the twin flame journey is a journey to self-discovery through unconditional love. And in a nutshell, that's it. In a nutshell, that is the twin flame journey. The twin flame journey is a journey to self-discovery through unconditional love. And that's it. Now, if you decide to go that route and give that explanation to your Muggle friend or non-twin flame friend, that might not be satisfactory. If they're not prepared for that type of answer or that type of esoteric or spiritual answer, they might just look at you with a blank stare, because that's a pretty bold answer. And if so, that might not be the best route. If your friend or family member is a little bit awakened to their spiritual self, then they might get intrigued and they might still ask more questions about the twin flame journey. I believe that 75% of the population, and this is just based on my study of evolutionary astrology. I am a student of evolutionary astrology that was really fathered, if you will, by Jeffrey Wolf Green. And it's something that I started studying about a year ago. And I am in the midst of my studies to become an evolutionary astrologer. And Jeffrey Wolf Green explains about the different states of consciousness that we enter into this lifetime doing, meaning our soul is prepared at a certain level. And we are always working to get to the highest level, which is spiritual state of consciousness, but really it's more like merging with the divine, if you will. And most people in the world are at the consensus state, which is about 75%. Consensus state is also known as the herd state, if you will. And they're just following life as it is in this lifetime. Being in the consensus is really important to them, being accepted, being loved, being fulfilled by the people around them, but not ruffling feathers, not really becoming independent thinkers, not really thinking about bigger picture ideas. And since about 75% are in this consensus state of consciousness, they are not really prepared to ask the bigger questions. So if you come to them with something like the twin flame concept, they're not going to accept it because their brains are not hardwired to be able to be open to accepting that. Apart from the consensus state, there is about 10 to 15% of the population that is in the individuated state. And the individuated state of consciousness is when you begin as a soul to branch away from the consensus state. You usually come to the earth in the individuated state, and there are 3 stages in each of the states. So whether you are in stage 1, 2, or 3 of the individuated state, that's when you begin to separate yourself from the herd, separate yourself from the consensus. And if you have family and friends in that state category, that state of consciousness, then it's likely that at least they will listen because they're not in that state of everybody has to follow the crowd. It's either crowd A or crowd B, but you have to follow a crowd. And then there's about 2% of the population, according to evolutionary astrology, that is in the spiritual state of consciousness. Again, that state as well has 3 different stages that you enter into at 3 different lifetimes, or maybe 25 different lifetimes. But of course, those that are in the spiritual state of consciousness, whether it's stage 1, 2, or 3, 3 is really avatar. I mean, there are very few people that attain the avatar status, which is like Jesus, Buddha, the people that have really reached that full purest state of enlightenment. So very few, right? Very few on planet Earth. But if they're in either stage 1 or 2 of the spiritual state of consciousness, then they too would be more ready, willing, and able to listen at least to what the twin flame concept might be. So that being said, you have to know first who you are talking to. You need to know who you're talking to. And then you'll be better able to tailor your words that will fit their mentality. So let's just begin. And the best way to begin to explain is by bridging knowledge. By bridging knowledge. That is the best way. Because if you begin to use all these esoteric words like dark night of the soul, higher spiritual self, twin soul, telepathy, 5D, 3D, all of this, the Muggle in front of you is going to get utterly confused, and they're probably going to tune out and think that you're crazy, or just think that you are part of a cult or part of a new age philosophy that is so outside of the mainstream that they can't even comprehend. And so we need to start small when we're ready to explain it to family and friends. Perhaps the best way you could start is asking them if they believe that soulmates are real. Because I would say close to 100% of people have heard the word soulmate at some point, whether it's in a rom-com, whether it's in a soap opera, whatever, a drama on TV. Everyone has probably at some point heard the word soulmate. So the first bridging you can make is, do you believe in soulmates? Do you believe that people have soulmates? Do you believe that people have one soulmate? And start asking questions like that and engage in a conversation in that way. If the answer is no, that they don't really believe in soulmates, that they don't adhere to that, then you could ask them if they're still curious about what a twin flame is. And if the answer is no, you might want to end the conversation there. If the answer is yes, then you can continue with the bridging of the things that they might know so that they can begin to connect the dots of what this might be. Another thing that I'm just throwing in here, this is not on my list, but that I'm throwing in here is that I mentioned in the beginning that the twin flame journey is a journey to self-discovery through unconditional love. One thing that I would outline to your friend or family member who is a non-twin flame is that this is a journey about unconditional love. It's not a journey about fear. It's not a journey about ego. It's not a journey about people telling what other people should be doing. It really is a journey into unconditional love. And they need to know that in order to not worry about you, because I really believe that many well-intending family members or friends might be seriously concerned about you. And if you're really caught up in the obsession phase, the ego phase, kind of like the chaser phase, that might not show. The piece of the journey to unconditional love might not show through your behavior. So understandably, some family member and friends might be a little concerned about you. So let's go ahead and go to the examples that you could give them to bridge what they might know about a soulmate, what they might know about a soul connection, whether it's a lover or a friend or, someone who you feel really close to. So these are some of the questions that you might want to offer to them. Have you ever had a friend or lover with whom you finished each other's sentences? This is a really simple one because I think a lot of people have had this as an example in their lives where they had a best friend growing up, they had a lover, that they were so close, they were so used to each other, they were so incredibly close that they started to finish each other's sentences. Or you might have known as really good friends that you grew up with. There might have been that one special friend that you guys began to dress alike and speak alike. And there was this symbiosis that just happened because you spent so much time together. And even perhaps people say, hey, you and your best friend look a lot alike, right? And that's usually because when you spend a copious amount of time with somebody, you tend to take on each other's energy, including speech, phrases, jokes, and you really start to get to know each other and finish each other's sentences. So that is a good example to start with so it can get the juices flowing in your friend or family member's head. And they're like, oh yeah, okay, so yeah, that has happened to me one time, or I know a friend that happened to them, or I've seen this couple that they're constantly finishing each other's sentences and it's kind of annoying, but I do know that happens. Number 2, have you ever been thinking about someone and then they called or texted? So we're starting to get into the telepathy, we're starting to get into the coincidences, the ethereal world, and those weird reasons why. Like, why did that happen? I just thought of this person and they called. I thought of this person and they texted. And some people just say, oh, that was a coincidence. But sometimes those coincidences happen more frequently than at other times. So again, that's a second bridging activity you could say is like, have you ever just thought of someone and out of the blue, they just called you? Or you saw a picture of someone you hadn't seen in 10 years and then they texted you. Number 3, have you ever met someone and felt like you knew them even though you had never met them? So this is the third question you can ask. So has there ever been a person you've met and you just felt like, I don't know what it is, but I feel like I know you. I feel like you look like someone I know. And I can't quite put my finger on it, but I just feel like I know you. And again, this will get the creative juices flowing. They'll either say yay or nay. But again, those are all signs and symbols of like a soulmate relationship, a soul connection relationship, someone with whom you've journeyed before on earth, talking about reincarnation, which you really don't want to mention that to people who are not on the twin flame journey, who might not espouse those beliefs. But we're starting to get toward that, right? Do you get this feeling when you meet someone sometimes that you really know them? You don't know how you know them, but you just know them. Number 4 is, have you ever had the urge to reach out to a friend or loved one with the thought that they might need your help? And as it turns out, they did. So this goes back to telepathy, right? It goes back to the hunch, the intuition. And people that are close, generally speaking, especially actual twins, like biological twins or brothers and sisters, or even parent and child, they sometimes have these intuitive hits where they just get this hunch like, oh, my child needs me, my sister needs me, my brother needs me. And I don't know why, but I just need to have a phone call, figure out what's wrong with them. And as it turns out, something was wrong, you were right, and you didn't know how. How did you know? How did you know something was wrong? And again, it goes back to intuition, telepathy, not necessarily words that you want to use with your friend, but these are ways to get them to really think outside of the box. Number 5, have you ever had an experience where you keep running into the same person? For example, you see them at the gym, the next day you see them at the Starbucks, the next day you see them at the dry cleaners, and you're like, why do we keep running into each other? And they can dismiss it as mere coincidence. They can dismiss it as, oh, we live in a 2-block radius and there's the Starbucks and the dry cleaners. But you can start to piece together, well, how coincidental is it that you would run into them at different times of the day, that you happen to be in the same place at the same time every day or every other day or twice a week? These seem to be non-habitual. So you might pick up your dry cleaners on a Wednesday one week, but then on a Tuesday another week. You might go to Starbucks every day at the same time, but maybe you ran into this person and you were going to Starbucks at 4 p.m. instead of at 9 a.m. Number 6, have you ever met a person and said to yourself, that person needs to be my friend or they need to be in my life? They might be an important part of my life. Again, this is going back to the intuition, the hunch, the feeling. We're getting away. Do you see what you're doing with these questions? You're getting away from the logical brain. Because for someone to be able to embrace a concept that is not logical, like soul, soulmates, twin flame, in order for someone to be able to do that, you have to get them away from the left side of the brain, the logical side of the brain, and you need to move them gently into the right side of the brain to be more open, to be more expansive and creative. And that is also the side where you access more of spiritual stuff. And so when you say, like, have you ever met someone, you're like, this person's gonna be super important in my life, or I just feel like we're gonna be best friends for a really long time. Again, that's your intuition speaking to you. That's your soul speaking to you. And number 7, this is the last but not least. Have you ever had a coincidence or synchronicity happen? Now, you might have to explain to them what a synchronicity is, but a coincidence, to coincide, means to fit together perfectly, right? Some people think of coincidences as happenstance events, but to coincide, I believe it's a mathematical term. You mathematicians out there, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I heard this from my teacher, Deepak Chopra, about coincidences, meaning when something coincides, it's like fitting together perfectly. It's supposed to. It's supposed to happen. And synchronicity is when you are aligned, synchronous, right? When something is asynchronous, it doesn't fit. There's no harmony. When something is synchronous, there is harmony. So when you are aligned with someone's energy, things will happen. Those coincidences will happen because the energies are aligned. And so you can ask your friend, has anything ever happened to you that was a coincidence that you couldn't have made happen? Have you ever had synchronicities happen where something just appeared after you thought about it? And so all of these questions, again, will get the creative juices flowing. Now, it may work and it may not work, but at least you are helping them move from the logical brain into the creative brain. That will help them begin to understand what the twin flame journey is about. And as you're explaining this, you can say, well, the twin flame journey, when you meet a twin flame, all of those things happen, but they're very magnified. All 7 of the things that I just mentioned to you, they all happen and they're extremely magnified. So it's like looking at all of those things with a magnifying glass. And so you are left with this person who is magnifying all of these things that are happening that leave you in wonder and awe. And to boot, you're feeling a tremendous amount of unconditional love for them. And then the journey is about self-discovery. So you can wind it back to the first thing, but it's important if they're curious enough to take them through the bridging exercise, and it doesn't have to be exact, right? It's not an exact science. Sometimes these conversations happen spontaneously. You can't plan for them and you are caught off guard. And if it happens like in the middle of a party and there are several people, you're like, but you can have that conversation and you can turn the conversation if you find that there's a lot of doubt present, if you find there's a lot of skepticism present, if you find that people are extremely negative, you don't want to go into that trap because you know your journey. You know what you've experienced, you know your journey, and you don't need to justify it or explain it to anyone. But if you are willing to share with someone who is curious and they seem pretty open about receiving, then those are some of the things that you can offer to them to really help them to understand what you're going through. So I hope this was helpful, Twin Flame. I want to thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for subscribing to my channel below. Click on the bell, scroll up to all for all notifications. And thank you for giving the video a thumbs up. Thank you for sharing this video with other Twin Flames. And thank you so much for your support of my YouTube channel. You can buy one of my 11 published books. You can join a Twin Flame Bootcamp or my meditation course online. I also do some group coaching that we do through Patreon. All the links are below. And I will see you in the next video.